and good morning, and welcome to Women Who Rock Investigates. This is your host, Ms. Diane Winbush, and today we will be talking about diversities and disparities in with women of color in the workplace. And to be able to help us to be able to understand this a little bit more is our special guest today, and she's back with us, I think, the second or third time, and it is none other than corporate diversity instructor, Miss Natalia Nicholson. So good morning, Natalia, and welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. I absolutely love your show, Diane. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Perfect. And then once again, I always say the same thing. I love the accent. Love the accent. So first of all, for the new comers that are tuning in today with us, kind of tell the audience a little bit about you and a little bit about what you do in your work.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Natalia Nicholson, and I run a community called Women in Digital Business. And it's for underrepresented women. It's for underrepresented women that have a story that's full of grit, tenacity, adversity, and really want to be able to excel themselves and have an online business. Because as women, when you're a female entrepreneur, a digital business gives you flexibility and it gives you freedom. If you've got children, you're a community leader, you're a mother, a daughter, a niece. Our lives are very much different to men, which is why I'm going to love this show today, because we have so many roles and hats. So Women in Digital Business is for the underrepresented women that doesn't see herself, when she's looking through ads and businesses and she wants to have a role model or someone to help her along the way. This community is about creating a sisterhood to really help you get your business ahead and actually offer strategies that the corporates are using that, when you're a micro or a small business, everybody wants to drip feed you information for a really high fee. When for some groups, this information is actually a part of their blueprint and they're learning it for free. So it's a community that just gives amazing value to really help women get ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. So we're going to get into what women of color is. A lot of, women of color is African American, okay? And so a lot of times women will be passed along in the workplace as far as promotions are concerned, as far as their expertise is concerned. And we want to be able to talk about that and help women to navigate around these disparities in order to make their work environment a little bit more effective. I believe that we can do a lot of things without, a lot of times individuals, they will, file complaints and what have you, but I think there's a little bit more that we can be able to do.
Yeah.
We can be able to not cause so much confusion and stress in the workplace, but we can be able to find another way and another avenue to be able to do it. And so that's the reason why we have you here, to be able to help us to be able to understand that. So tell us a little bit about women and why they go through so many disparities. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this is the reason why I created my own brand, simply because of the disparities that women of color do have in the workplace. And sometimes it'd be the smallest little things that women encounter. And so tell us the reason why you feel that women do encounter these things, these disparities in the workplace.
Wow. Big question, because there's so many angles to come at. I think for me, when I was in the corporate world before having my own business, being a confident woman of color for some strange unknown reason is mistaken as you being aggressive. And I think many women of color can identify what I'm saying. You're in a world that is a man's world, so you have to be able to hold your own. You're told not to cry and be emotional, but then when you're confident and you stand up straight and tall and you speak out, now all of a sudden you're a bully. So I feel like for the confident woman, that's a huge problem in the workplace of being assertive, because I'm a firm believer in self-promotion. So for some women who don't like to self-promote because they lack confidence and they've been torn down within the work, the community, and in various phases of their life. These are the women that come in and, you know, they feel like they're not heard. They feel like they have no voice. They feel like they're missed past promotions. They feel like people that are not even as good as them within their skill set are getting further ahead of them. And that's because you have to speak out more. I feel like self-promotion is really, really important, because if you give these organizations, especially large corporates, an excuse not to see you, you will not be seen. So you're going to have to make yourself be heard and seen. But I feel like there's an element of, it's not what you say so much as how you say it. So it's really difficult for us, because what I just explained to you is one spectrum to the other. It's left wing and right wing. So it's about finding that happy medium of being confident and assertive, so you're not a bully, but speaking up enough to be heard and be seen, to say, hey, this is what I'm good at. And I do think with women in colour in particular, we are really incredibly bad at saying, this is what I'm good at. And I think that's a huge problem as well. We wear this invisible superhero cloak. It's like, you know, you've got to get the kids up ready. If you're a single parent, you've got the mortgage to pay, food to put on the table. If you're a wife, you've not just got the kids, but, you know, you've got to support and be there for your husband. Then on top of it, you've got to be a career woman and perform at work. You know, God forbid if you look after your parents as well. And, you know, that's just starters. That's not even the main portion of it. So I feel like what happens is that we're so used to just doing it because that's what we've seen our parents and our grandmothers do. We see how strong they are and we see what they can cope with. So we've emulated that blueprint and we just feel like that's life. That's what you have to do. So we don't speak about how great we are. And I feel like that is one of the problems. And the corporate world is recognizing us. The statistics are 53% of organizations that have women as board members outperform. They're more motivated, they outperform companies that don't. So these corporates are recognizing our power, and you're noticing that you're seeing CEOs spring up that are women, but not only are they women, they're women of color, they're Black women. Because they know and recognize our strength. And I think we need to know and recognize our strength and start speaking up in the workplace. Better to be a bully and be a boss.
So do you feel that the level of our skills play a major factor in that? So take, for instance, me, myself, working as a restaurant manager years ago, back in the 90s. This has been, you know, a long time ago, back in dinosaur days. And so this educated manager was hired. She came in, both was same, women of color, and she was confused as to why her paycheck and I guess my salary was different from hers. So that is going to be the next question, and I guess the next discussion that we're going to talk about is in regards to the skills, because here in the United States, of course, you know, you've heard about all of the disparities that are going on here. You know, they're giving away all of the stimulus checks and they're giving away the child care income and what have you. But still there are 5 million jobs that are available here in the United States and is lying dormant. So do you feel that skills will make our voices to be heard a little bit better? I'm gonna share another story with you. Hold on for
Yeah.
in there right quick. And so what happened was this young lady, of course, she was bullied in school and she was called the little nerd and what have you. She went to school back here about 6 years ago, went to school, finished her degree, come out, and when she started working her I can't pronounce, you know, it's clericals when you're doing the nursing field, but she was about to get ready to graduate.
Right, yeah.
And she landed an $80,000 job annually as a marketing. Yes, she and as you stated, it could be your voice, and this is what we're going to talk about, is the skills and education that women of color perhaps maybe possess. Sometimes we may be in the wrong area. Sometimes we may be going after the wrong position. Sometimes we're not targeted for the right specific topic of what we should be in. Can we kind of talk about that a little bit and stuff as in regards to the skills that women of color possess?
I get so frustrated with this, by the way, because there's two elements of this for me.
Okay.
There's a pay gap and a problem with women in general. So we haven't even got to diversity or underrepresented, by the way. And there's and there's just a problem with the female race. There is still a massive pay gap in terms of being a woman. We've been fighting for this since after the Second World War. We are in 2021 and there is still a pay gap when it's in regards to a woman. So if we're still fighting for that, wow, our struggle as a woman of color is even worse and behind the queue in that. So the pay gap's a big thing for me. And I get really frustrated with corporates because this whole skill, there is a skills gap. At the moment, there's a huge digital skills gap. And it's funny, when we look at academia and the way that you are taught to just keep repeating the same thing until it sticks. Even at degree and mastery level, that's the same case. When we look at people that are really well educated and we look at, well, how do they perform commercially within an organization? Sorry to say, 9 times out of 10 is terribly, because being an academic doesn't mean to say that you're going to perform well in the corporate world. So I get frustrated with this topic because the corporates and their HR departments, imagine that you get interviewed for a role by someone from HR that you are never going to work with, they're not going to manage you, and they have no understanding how to do the role that your department does, never mind what you're being interviewed for. So everything comes down to assessing you by what qualifications you've got and what experience that you've got to go with that. And I feel like organizations and their HR recruitment process, this is one of the reasons why there's such a problem. And then when you're a woman of color, you get assessed by walking into a room without even saying anything. In this country, language is a big barrier in the UK, and I know it is in the US as well, especially in the hospitality industry, when you said the restaurants. So if you come in, let English not be your mother tongue. Oh boy, you could have a master's, a PhD, you could have 10 years experience, forget it. You're more than likely not going to get that job. And that's a sad place that we live in. So we see in America and the UK, people coming over as immigrants that have got first class honours, PhDs, they come over here and they are working in positions that are way lower than their skill set. So in one hand, you have to have all these qualifications just to get the salary you have. In another hand, you could have all the qualifications in the world. You're still not going to get that job or salary just based on the fact that A, you're a woman and you're going to get paid lower, and then you're a woman of color. That makes it really, really hard. So my thing in terms of overcoming this, because I like to be a solution focused person, it's about thinking about the type of organization you want to work for. And thinking about the company culture and how you fit into there, because some organizations will take a risk and a chance if you are good at what you do. And it goes right the way back, Diane, to what I was saying, self-promotion. You need to be able to hold your own when you're being interviewed, or when you're trying to get your foot in the door and say, hang on, this is what I'm good at, this is the reason why, this is why I'm an authority. And the digital world has made it easier for us to do that, because you can brand yourself. Mm-hmm. These people can go and look you up now and see, that you write blogs, people leave reviews for you. So I don't really feel it's necessarily about the qualifications as much as it is setting yourself as an authority. But you do have to be very careful, when to be overconfident. And in this day and age, still in 2021, as we do this interview, when to have to say, yes, ma'am. There's still that hierarchy there, and so that's why self-promotion is important, to bring it back to that point. But yeah, you have to establish yourself as an authority. You have to say, this is why I'm good at what I'm doing. You have to be able to prove it, and you have to prove it past that qualification, because the qualification doesn't really mean anything, and corporates know this. They know the types of people they're looking for. And I think innovation goes quite far in this day and age, and that's something that you can take as a positive, to be innovative about the way how you present yourself to get ahead. But again, it's just so much work.
It is. Natalia, when I first got started in the workforce, this did not have anything to do with the corporate world, but it was on a when you first get out of high school, you're looking for work and you're looking for employment and what have you. And so in the beginning, okay, you're looking for work. and then later on you try to kind of get an establishment as to what you want to do. And so I also feel that setting goals is, you know, and that's something I think that you kind of hit on and stuff, is that, you know, you have to know what you want to do. You don't apply for the position just because it's open and what have you, and you feel that you're qualified, but set the
Yeah,
goal
yeah,
that you want, and who you want to be as a leader over you. And as you stated, you know, you have to be that type of boss,
yeah.
able to stand out and what have you, in order to make your statements be heard.
You're so right, Diane. Did you know that women only apply for jobs when they can meet at least 70 to 80% of the job specification, where a man would apply for a job if he met 40? And these are real facts. And that's another thing we need to take into consideration. Again, we downplay ourselves a lot. And as to some of us who come across, I've been told many a times, you know, even my husband, we're from a Caribbean, like that's my nickname. He calls me Bad Gab. That's what he calls me. When I speak, people perceive me to be very confident and outspoken. But, you know, it is a bit like you have over the years and having to go through what I've gone through, especially things are different now. So for those of you who are in your 20s, and I know it's difficult out there because, you know, discrimination and racism is very underhanded now. It's very institutionalized. Well, I've grown up in an era where it wasn't institutionalized, where people would tell you things to your face and feel quite comfortable to do so. And I also live in a time where they don't. But over the years, it's almost like I've developed an alter ego. I still have my own insecurities. I still have imposter syndrome. I still wear that invisible cloak where I just think, suck it up and get on with it. There's no time for tears. You know, you just have to do that. And I think as a woman of color, it's embedded into us. But I think we need to be more confident with our skill set in general. Why are we not applying to jobs that we meet 50% of the job spec? Just because you don't know something, you could probably pick it up in an hour. Because that's how some of these specs are written. So a lot of it to do as well is that we are perceived to be strong, but we're strong because you haven't got a choice. There's no choice. You know, people say, oh, you're such a strong woman. Now, how do you do it? And sometimes I think to myself, if you grew up how I grew up, or if you was someone that comes from a background of adversity, you would never ask that question because you just suck it up and get on with it, and you do it with a smile on your face. You are taught that from coming out of the womb as a woman, just like how men are taught about how, you know, the police will stop you and certain other issues. As a woman, you are taught, get on with it.
Right. And so just to touch a little bit on that, and I don't have names, you know, I think here in the US, it was a specific state that was trying to, I think it was in regards to voter suppression or something like that, and a woman of color, and I think she had an extensive, powerful background too. So she wanted to enter into the hearing and in the meeting while they were discussing to get everything signed. I think it was, it may have been the state of Georgia or Atlanta or something like that. And it was such a huge ruckus. And so she ended up getting arrested. And so I have a couple of issues about that. One, sometimes if things are gonna happen, I mean, I'm not for sure if I will put myself out there, even though I may have a status and I can. I'm not for sure if I will put myself out there and get arrested. I'm not trying to do a Martin Luther King type of demonstration, okay? But I feel that it may have went just a little bit too far on her part, because we're not, I mean, you know, that's just my opinion about it. Everybody has their own opinion, but that was my opinion. If they're not letting anyone else into the meeting, and you want to come in because, and it was basically African Americans too. Voter suppression is to where voters, if they're out there trying to vote, and if it's hot and what have you, I think it was something simple like, we're not going to provide you water, we're not going to provide you transportation to get to the voting sites and what have you. And so and I'm not saying that she was wrong in what she was doing. My thing was, I felt that in that, as a woman of color, she may have taken it a little bit too far as her disposition, trying to make a statement for the people of color in that area. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's actually a fact. Google done a survey on this, so did American Express and so did MasterCard. Mm-hmm. And most women and men in corporations feel that women who are outspoken and speak up too much they're not someone that's favored or liked within an organization. But nobody says anything about it. And when you actually really start to read the research and dig deep, what it looks like to me is that the white males who are much higher up in the food chain of an organization at the top almost don't like it, because they can see that's going to be a fall. That's going to be a failing to get any further. So rock on and shoot yourself in the foot. And then the women who are below feel like, actually, you're not making any room for us. And I think when we talk about self-promotion and confidence, the soft skill stuff that we've been talking about on today's show, as a sisterhood, we need to support and rise one another up. When sisterhood is in working operation, it's the most beautiful and powerful thing, and it gets things done. You know, it's that Michelle Obama, come on, you know, behind every great man, you know, is a great woman. And, you know, when you look at women of color and what they do in terms of their communities, leaderships, what they've done to change lives, I just feel like some of that needs to be brought into the corporate world. And, you know, she should have really been more inclusive. Inclusivity isn't just for the white man. It's not just for the corporation. You know, my dad always used to say to me, he who knows what to do should know better. So, you know, if you know better, do better.
So, that's exactly the way we were kind of trained and raised in our household and what have you too. And not saying that it was incorrect as to what she was doing. I feel that she should have had a little bit more, should have had a little bit more authoritative behind her. You know, I would have went and got, you know, I think they just arrested the Reverend Jesse Jackson over voter suppression last week. Yeah, they just arrested him and what have you. Of course, you know, that's gonna just only be a few hours or what have you, and they set a bail and then you're gone or what have you. But he did a big protest about the voter suppression too. I would have, to me, this is just me saying this, and this lady has a very powerful position in government too, but I felt that as a woman in her position, and of course, you know that they're going to downplay her. Oh, you're a female, don't sit down, we're not listening to you, we're not going to let you into this meeting, you're not important enough, even though she had accolades and everything else to support her. My thing was, I felt that I would have waited and made sure that I got a little bit more people that perhaps in a higher status than I was, and brought them in with me, and perhaps she probably still would have gotten arrested, but at the same time she would have had a little bit more.
Do you know what though, Diane? It's so sad because many of us don't do things like that because of the repercussion we feel like it would have on us. So many of us don't have a voice in the corporate world because of the repercussions that we think that we might get in terms of disciplinary, being fired, having a black mark against us, trying to climb the ladder. We're not given a voice within these environments big enough, if that makes any sense, without any repercussions. So in that sense, that's something, again, I feel like it's another thing to have to overcome in the workplace. Mm-hmm. You're going to have that courage. Mm-hmm. And when everybody's on the same team and you've got a sisterhood within the organization, it's harder to black mark or do anything to anyone because there's a group of you. So we have to learn to work with each other more because there's power in numbers. It's like anything, you know, teamwork makes the dream work. You know, we've all heard that expression, and I do feel like that.
That is out there. Instead of you just putting your little cubicle status out there. You know, I know we're trying to continue the fight is heavy all over the world, you know, for human rights and what have you. And I know she was trying to put her, you know, Status out there.
But she could have been the scapegoat as well. So we have a UK politician here, an Indian woman. I can't actually bear her. Yeah, I said that. Like you said, we're all entitled to our own opinion. So I'm not even going to drop her name for that reason, but I can't. She's an Indian lady, and she's passed a bill here in the UK where people can't protest anymore. So as a person, thank you so much. So as a person of colour, knowing what your people went through and to know that, you know, how we live now, the things that have been great that have changed have been done through protests. And that's the bill that you want to finally, so she's passed it through the different phases of Parliament. So, and that's her fight, is to stop protesting. You know, things can be worked out a different way. And I can't figure out, is she for real or is she being paid on the side to because it just makes no sense to me that that is what you stand for. And she seems to get a lot of PR. You know, back here, we had the Black Lives Matter protest last year summer, and there was a whole report written about racism in the UK and how they're going to overcome it. The report came out, and do you know what it said, Diane? The UK is not racist. Yep, it made reference to the fact that, you know, even women, it spoke about women. Women of colour have got the same opportunities as any other immigrants, even though, you know, now that we're not immigrants, we've got the same opportunities as other white groups, immigrant groups. It's shown that we've got X amount of jobs. So the corporates will use information and analytics in however it suits you. Numbers tell a story. So you can manipulate numbers to tell the story that you want. So a lot of what we're talking about here today, I feel like anybody listening to this is something that you felt or gone through. It's not in a statistics or a stat. And again, what do? They got a black man to write the report. So sometimes I feel like in the corporate world, those situations are used to be a scapegoat, as if to say, either someone's on our side and they're one of you. So what they end up doing is create this divide line of a them and an us. So the battle just keeps continuing. So as corny as it might sound, love overcomes everything. And we have to move that divide line by coming together more. We need to support one another as women in the workplace more. Because in that way, it's harder to divide us, break us, or pay less. Imagine if every woman of colour in the workplace spoke to each other and knew each other's salary. HR would have a problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that would be that would be something to listen to. That would be something to be tuned into, if everybody knew everybody's salary. I mean, you know, as far as women of color is concerned. We want to talk about just a little bit about, I'm not for sure if you heard about the news in the Haitian government where the president was assassinated and what happened. What do you feel in your terms where this will leave the wife, with where she is, and do you think that would be something that they would perhaps maybe try to consider as putting her up as perhaps maybe not the president, I'm pretty sure, simply because of the fact I'm pretty sure her views were the same views as her husband.
And she's a woman. Sorry, Diane, let's face it. And she's a woman. And that's going to be a problem as well. That's going to be a problem. They are not going to have a female prime minister in there. I mean, that's a difficult one for me. I'm frightened for her life. You really want me to be really honest and keep it real with you, from how he got assassinated and how I'm frightened for her life. So I don't even want her to be in a high profile position. Wow. If truth be told, you know, assassinations, that's serious. That's deep. Even when I read it, it just felt like it would have to be someone at the top that would do something like that. Like, what would make someone that badly want to get rid of the prime minister because, you know, it was a problem for them, if that makes any sense. And the group of people that opposed him and the opposition party, it wasn't like the whole of Haiti, they were all saying, oh, you know, we don't want you, we don't want you. Yes, they did. It just didn't make sense to me. I'm going to be really honest with you. When I read that sounded like, you know, was that another country that took him out? I couldn't. Just my opinion. I couldn't help but think it. I think for her, like you said, will they use her? I don't think they will, but I think she would be a brilliant person to use in a sense of being the first lady in any country and having to navigate around that in terms of understanding politics, policy, supporting your husband, having to understand the social and economics of a country and how you do that while being a first lady, while being a wife, while being a mother. I think her story would just be so validated for so many other women. So it would be nice if she put her story out there. In terms of her having an active part in politics or being a part of their government, I'm frightened for her. I hope not.
I am too, because when I kind of saw the news clipping and what have you, and of course she went to Florida, that's not that far from Haiti, and so she came from the hospital and what have you, and I was just thinking, I said, now what would be the next chapter that she would do, but right now,
and it sounded like that they wanted to kill her too.
oh wow.
Well, it did to me. The mere fact that they assassinated him and she was in the room and she managed to get away. Does that make any sense? If you're going to assassinate someone and someone's there, really, you're going to take that person out as well. But they didn't. Again, I don't know how you felt about it, but Matt, I actually went on the internet and started searching, Diane. This is how deep it is, because the reporting made no sense to me. It had no depth to it. It was just so on the surface, like, he caught corona and he's recovering now or something. I don't feel like if that was any other president in the developing world that happened to, there would have been a media frenzy. There would have been questions that needed to be answered. I feel like that hit the news and it was hot. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would say for about a week, at the most 10 days, and that's it. It was over.
Okay.
I don't feel like any questions have been answered. I've got a news alert about that, by the way, on my phone, and I don't see anything really come up on it. So I'm more frightened for her life. But yeah, that would be an amazing voice. Could you imagine if she told her story?
That was very, very awesome and things. And so I just wanted to kind of put that topic in there for today to kind of see if what were your takes on that, as to, do you think that would be something helpful for her to be able to do? I'm pretty sure she's in hiding at this point, and what have you. I'm pretty sure that the job is not finished. As we was talking.
I totally agree with you. And it's funny now that you said that to me, Diane, as I'm sitting here, sometimes we forget the different groups of underrepresented women that we make up. So even at the moment, I'm way behind everyone by about probably 10 years. Even my sister was like, I cannot believe you're only watching this show now. So I've been watching Mary Jane. No, she was in Stitches. She was like, no, everybody did that so long ago. So I've been watching that. It's just, sometimes end of the day, you just want to shut down to something that, you don't have to think about too much. But interestingly enough, what I do like about and what I've seen on that program is the high-powered Black women. And I think sometimes we forget when we're having these conversations that you have got entry level, you've got medical staff, you've got surgeons. Like, we actually have representation in all different types of fields throughout every single hierarchy of the corporate organization. So what about the women that are really on a commercial level and they're at top level, mainly just with white middle-class men who populate the workplace? What about the women like that first lady? Do you know what I mean? Where you have a social responsibility and you are married and you're backing a very powerful man and you have got a job within that yourself. Like, who do they go to? Who are their stories? Who are their role models? What do they listen to? And it's funny that you say that. It almost feels like the higher you go up that hierarchy, the lonelier it must get. Mm-hmm. So imagine if she could put her story out, how many women she would resonate with that actually have broke ceiling heights and they don't feel like there is any outlet whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a scary place to be.
It is. She got off the plane and what have you, and we're going to move on to the next segment. When she got off the plane and she shook I think it was two gentlemen's hands. She shook their hands, and of course her arm was in a sling too. But I'm pretty sure that this is going to be something that she's going to perhaps maybe think about coming out on later on, maybe 2-3 years down the road, and it probably will open up some doors for other Haitian women and perhaps UK and perhaps the United States and what have you, because of what she had to endure. She was able to escape it, but she still is maintaining herself, her role as a woman. So I thought, I just wanted to kind of bring that up. That was so heartfelt.
And I hope she does a lot for the Haitian community. I feel like the Haitian community gets a really raw deal. They get judged continuously, even here in the UK. Their political system has got its problems, like a lot of political systems in the Caribbean, but I feel like they're singled out. And when you look at the history of Haitians as well, this is a nation, by the way, that did not give in to being attacked. When you look at their history and you see how all the other islands were colonized, Haiti was not having it, Diane. When the French came, do you know how many of them died? They were not backing down to the point that they actually won and said, you are not taking over our island. And then because they've won ever since, it's like they are just beneath any other country. It's worse than a Cuba situation. The developed countries cut Haiti off. So there, nothing could go in, nothing was coming out, and that's how poverty became so bad as it did in Haiti. So when you look at the history of these people are die-hard fighters, and it just always feels it's not just the president. They've had things taken away from them just to keep them broken. So let's see if it's a woman that does the job. I'll say it's enough.
To be able to bring change to that area, the location. So the next, and thank you for so much for that. The next segment we want to talk about, and this is going to be kind of, it may be controversial, but we're gonna hit the topic, okay? So because the topic we're talking about women of color in the workforce, and so we want to talk about women of color and when men of color try to dominate the women of color. So I'm gonna explain it to you. I think it was a documentary. I don't know if it was a documentary or I think someone was, it was Morgan Freeman, the actor Morgan Freeman. He was being interviewed by this woman of color. She was a journalist, and he was being interviewed. He took the opportunity to abuse his authority and harass her on live camera.
Ooh.
The whole world, yes, ma'am. He went.
And that's not very Morgan Freeman. Well, not the Morgan Freeman that they portray anyway.
The one that played, the principal on Lean on Me.
Yeah.
Lean on Me some years ago. Yeah, he was in there, and it was on live television, and she was she tried her best, and we're going to talk about that too. She tried her best to overlook him, or get beyond his responses, simply because, and she had on a very short dress. I mean, but she's entitled, correct? She's entitled to wear that. And he was just commenting on her legs. He was commenting on her dress, and he was talking all the way. And he, I guess, my thing was, I felt that he felt that his authority figure as an actor, and he's been an actor for so long, gave him the right. This was around the Harvey Weinstein situation. Keep your mouth closed. And so we want to talk about the diversity and disparities that women face. Okay, and I'm gonna share another one with you. I'm gonna come down even lower than that. This individual, he's deceased today. He had this big he was a financial, this is in Tennessee. He had a financial position as a financial officer of this city that he lived in, man of color, okay? And so small business owners, I don't want to say where it's from, but we knew this individual personally, and we knew some of the women that were affected by the individual. So here's this man of color. He's an authority figure. He's huge in the state. He lives in a small local town, and he has the authority to be able to help women in businesses because he was over the transportation division. He was over different other divisions. Like I said, he was the county or the city financial officer and what have you, women would come to him. You know, I need this right here in order to be able to transport. And I'm gonna get to the point in just a second. I need this to be
No, I'm listening.
transport this women's group to our facility. And so he would go in there and offer them favors. I will give you this transportation for so much amount of money if you do this. And so this individual was a licensed, and she still is a licensed salon, what have you. She does hair. And so she went to a very professional individual. Actually, her daughter is the one that I was discussing that went in there, started out of high school, went to college, and went and landed that $80,000 job with Pepsi Cola as a marketing director. So the mother was a very pretty good entrepreneur. She went to the same individual that this other lady that went to. He did her the same way. She was in, like I said, of course, today, this happened maybe about, I'll say 5 or 6 years ago. He's deceased now. But how do women cope with men of color, and women are in the workplace of women of color, and they're challenged by their own ethnicity, their own religion, or their own racial background? You know, and this individual was a family member of ours. He was a family member of ours. I was so embarrassed when they came and they shared their stories with me. The women did. These are women of color. I was new that these women owned they owned their own apartment complexes. It was hot, and I felt that he used his authority to bring down to his level.
Yeah. That always makes me sad, because you are right, this is controversial. I feel like if we're going to talk about being Black, I'm in an underrepresented community, but I can't talk about being Asian or Hispanic. I can only talk about being Black from my point of view. Just like everybody can only talk about from where they're coming from. So for me, if I was to be honest with you, Diane, I feel like I'm probably trying to figure out how to put this in a way that isn't too offensive, but there's just no way to butter it up. I feel like in many situations, the Black man does not defend us. He doesn't defend us the way that he should defend us. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily his fault. In this situation is a bit different, because we're talking about, you know, abusing of authority. But in general, as a Black woman, I do feel like in many situations, especially in the corporate world, does that make sense? I feel like, and when I say that, let me just be clear. I feel like if it's the other way round, women will rise up Black men and be there for them. Does that make any sense? Even if in the corporate world, I've been in that environment where I think actually your work ethic isn't that great, or I can see what they mean. I feel the need to come in and probably stand side and stand there in support. Even when we look at things that the Black male community goes through, even from a community leader point of view, women will be saying, right, no, they've got rights. You can't be stopping and searching them. Prostate cancer, go and get a check. When you think about the issues that we go through, does that make any sense? Whether it's something to do with, I don't know, fibroids, the fact that you can't find a decent man, all of a sudden we're under attack. And I do feel like that. And I'm not saying, for anybody that's listening, I am not saying every Black man. I'm just saying at 43 years of age, from growing up, I have felt that many a times, from school, college, university, and in the corporate world. So I kind of want to touch on that, but there's reasons for that, and society has made it that way. Does that make any sense? There's a lot of things that the Black man gets stripped of that I think the Black woman is very aware of, and we're very understanding. In terms of the authority, you know what I say, Diane? Do you remember Game of Thrones? When Cersei was walking through the streets naked and they were saying, shame, shame, shame. For me, that's how I feel about that. I feel like not only do you need to be called out, but you need to be called out on what you're doing to your own. Right. I had a situation once where you know, I had a group of Black boys trying to take my bag, and I don't know why. Just so you know, in the UK, we call it mugged. I don't know what you call it in the US. We call it being mugged. It's such a word. And you can never say what you're going to do in a situation like that until it actually happens to you. But for whatever reason, yeah, I thought, I am not letting go of my bag. You're going to have to take me out. Like, the rage that came over me. And it's funny. And this was through tears and anger. This wasn't me being, you know, Miss Bossy, or me thinking that I'm, you know, bad, or whatever the case may be. It was anger. You know, when you have tears of pure frustration and anger. And I remember saying to them, of all the 1,000 women that you could pick, you want to pick me, the same as you, the same as your mum. And you know what, Diane? It's only when I started preaching that they ran off.
Oh, really?
I'm just, don't get me wrong, some people are just bad to the core. They kill you, shoot you, stab you, you know, let your bag go. I don't know what I was thinking being so, but this was broad daylight as well. So I probably had a comfort of knowing that someone must hear my screaming and taunting. They thought they could just snatch and run. It was an opportunist crime. But I'm just saying, instantly as I started saying that, it was just to let go, because some shame is going to come over you. I feel like they need to be shamed, Diane. I feel like you need to be shamed of doing that to your own. It's not okay on any level. And the same way I was just talking about sisterhood is the same way I just feel like our community in general, we need to be there for each other. We need to raise one another up. And I do think that's a male problem, what we're talking about here, and not just a man of colour problem, with that using your authority to get something that's personal for your gain. Does that make any sense? And I also think it's humiliation. I don't care what you want to call it, it's straight humiliation. And I just feel like they need to be called out more. And what is good is you are seeing a lot in our community and in the women community in general that's making women feel more comfortable to come out and speak up. Because you're right, even the Morgan Freeman, if someone wants to wear a short dress or behave the way they want to behave, we live in a society, in a world that they've got the right to do so and be so. If you want to have your opinion, that's fair enough, but don't make your opinion make it that you are degrading someone, or you feel like how someone's dressed is a way that you can then treat them, or it communicates something to you. Right. You know, if someone is autistic, you don't talk to them like they're stupid. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. And they're the most intelligent people that there are. I don't know. I just feel like shame on him. Shame.
Absolutely, because why would, I mean, my thing would be, you know, especially when women of color in some areas, they're already struggling and what have you in the corporate world. And they're, you know, and as I was explaining to you about this other individual, he was in politics as well, you know, and you're gonna degrade these women and tell them that you give them the access to what it is that you have the power and authority.
It's using their power. And when I think about it, Diane, it's not just black men. The Asian community suffers from this. The Hispanic community suffers from this. Okay. When, you know, you're using your power to give someone something to get back your own little sordid gain. Okay. There's a name for men like that. We're not going to say it on air, but you need to be called out and shamed for who you are and what you are. And it is a sad place to be. But again, that's why I feel like at the moment you are seeing more groups, more networks of black women coming together, of groups of community coming together, of like-minded women. So whether you're brown, beige, light beige, Hispanic, speak a different language, communities of women are coming together more and more to rise one another up. And for me, women are a pinnacle part of our society. The more we do that is the more that we show others in our community how to behave. And it also even goes back to how we even bring our sons up as well, sorry to say. It does stem back that far, if that makes any sense. And many men who are older didn't have dads to raise them, and where they've got into positions of power, you know, they emulate what they see is being done in the corporate world and the white class middleman, and it's not okay. Even to bring it right back down, like you said, I'll never forget when I watched the Bobby Brown story with a New Edition, the 4-part series. And just to give you an example, I did not realize that, I think it was Biv from Belle Biv DeVoe, the same thing that got done to them, where they got no money for any of their royalties. They were just on a little wage, you know, being told that you're going to get all this money, but by the time we've done all the spending for your tour and that, there's nothing left. So even though they were finished, they were living the high life while they were on tour. When they got back and finished, the mums were all like, well, hang on a minute, where's the paycheck? Well, we had to pay this, this, and that. And it was the horrible contract they were tied into. And it's not just Biff and Belle Biv DeVoe, many music moguls. Today, we saw TLC go bankrupt. Tony Braxton, they were all managed by other Black men that emulated that same system that robbed you and didn't pay you, and it angered you, but you felt it was okay to then make that structure to your own. It's a problem within our community, full stop. There's actually a lot of different examples of it. Because if you knew how much that hurt you to do that, what would make you think, bingo, I'm going to be just like you, and then do it back to your own? And a lot of this goes back to the mentality of slavery. Sorry.
Yes.
Because that's what it is. You're emulating and wanting to be like your master. Who wants to be like that?
Absolutely. Today you see over social media where individuals are I think Spike Lee is one of them, where he's offering master classes. You see a lot of actors now. Robin Roberts on Good Morning America, she's offering media classes as a master class. There are a lot of stars.
Yeah. And it isn't all bad. You're right. Denzel Washington, there's so many of them that are doing some great work to change it. And I think there's some great communities, charities that don't get mentioned that are actually changing the way that it is. But I think there needs to be a conversation, what you brought out today, to get people to actually just recognize this has been going on in all different types of industries. And actually, it's not okay. And it kind of comes from that dog-eat-dog world. Of being brought up in a place where, well, if he can get his, I'm going to get mine as well without any type of consequences. I believe right and wrong sits with you. I believe every individual knows right from wrong. So when you make that choice, sorry, Diane, shame.
Just think about it. And the purpose, the reason why I brought that up about the training classes and courses that they're offering to just regular citizens like you and I, UK, if anybody can sign and register for it. But just think about it, if the new edition and other people back then would have been trained. I think that's back then they just tell you, go right down the line, sign a contract, and what have you. Yeah. The people did not understand. I think that was the issue.
Definitely, they didn't understand. But I think for me, I can't still grasp the concept that once you understood and you knew what it was felt like for someone to take that much advantage and liberties of you, why you would then want to go and do that to someone else. But they say, don't they, if like I grew up in a house where typical black house where there was just clutter everywhere. My mum and dad are hoarders. I now suffer from severe OCD. You're going to go one way or the other, aren't you? You're going to be either probably exactly like them or now I'm just so far the other way. I can't stand mess. I can't stand anything being left around. I guarantee you in my house, if you can't find something, it's because I threw it away. I don't. And it's because of the way that I was brought up. We tend to go one way or another. But I think you're right. I think upskilling is important. And I think you just reminded me the reason why that's my why for Women into Digital Business, if you want me to interview Diane. It's about sharing my experiences and what I went through, and also experiencing what I learned that made me get on top and not holding that information back. Even if you do the same thing as me, I share as much information as possible. And nobody understands this law like Oprah. It's called the law of, giving. When you give, you get it back tenfold. It's just the law of life. It's the law of reciprocation. That's the word. But yeah, it's about sharing that knowledge. I think it's so important for me. All of us that have got knowledge to get ahead and know better, we have to share it and rise others up. Or we put them on the walk of shame, because I'm dying to shame that man and that politician. That's horrible. Like, that's horrible. Like, you shouldn't really be able to sleep at night, but many do.
And perhaps it may turn perhaps it may be something where an individual may practice one thing and then they get away with it and they do it again and they do it again because the person has held this political and this county job as a financial planner for years. I know probably at least about 30. So just think
Wow.
about how long that he has perhaps gotten away with that. And then, it's just like a taste of honey. That tastes good. I can get away with this and things. All I got to do is go in and bluff these women. And especially, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't, the Caucasian woman, the Hispanic female that was done like that. It was his own women of color, his own ethnicity.
Because he knew their weaknesses, Diane. Being from the same community, you're going to understand their mindset, their weaknesses, and exactly what to say to put fear into them or make them feel like there is no other choice. Which is sad, which is really sad. But I am a firm believer, Diane. What goes around, girl, it comes around. And his judgment's going to come whether he likes it or not. People like that always end up somehow, I don't know, you reap what you sow. I'm a very firm believer of that.
Absolutely. And we really need to wrap this up. And it was
oh, I love speaking to you.
and I have to bring it out. And I think you brought up about it was something about Oprah, and we're going to talk about that real quick. And this is going to be the last segment that we're going to discuss just for today. And that's, I think, when the issue happened with Kobe Bryant, I know you heard about that.
Yeah, I did.
And so, of course, the ruckus stirred up about the journalist on CBS News, Gail King.
Gail.
And so Oprah came to her rescue and what have you. And so it made...
And it backfired on her.
It backfired, and it made the people of color, and it made the African-American community very, very offended towards Oprah and Gail King. And so, I think that what Oprah did, she tried to go back and corrected it by, putting up billboards and stuff about she support Breonna Taylor and what have you, and all these other things. And, we all have had issues with this, but we were always taught that you always think before you speak or think before you react. Yeah. That's your best friend.
And not only that as well, Diane, have some respect. I really feel like that about that situation more than anything else. Under the circumstances, how that man died, his daughter died, and the circumstances around it, you should have just shut up. I'm so sorry. It was just disrespectful. It was as simple as that. Like, it was as simple as that for me. Like, it's almost like when you're taught, like when you go into someone's house and you're younger, like, my parents are very hot on manners. You say please, you say thank you, you say hello to the owner. It comes under manners and respect for me. That's actually I'm not even interested in what it was about. She's just got no manners. It was just rude. And rude, insensitive, disrespectful. And actually, I just feel like you're right. Think about what you're going to say before you start tearing down people in our community. There's lack of representation as it is. So we don't need any more running around. You're right. I'm not saying she couldn't have said something. You couldn't have said it better. It should have been much more thought about. And then when Oprah when she dropped the interview of Russell Simmons, it's really funny how, people like Gail and other people weren't as vocal about that when there was hardcore evidence. Just saying. It kind of just got swept under the carpet because you had contractual obligations and you probably couldn't say what you wanted to say, and that's why you stopped the interview. But because you had no contractual agreements, and you see how a lot of things come down to business, it wasn't okay. It wasn't cool. It wasn't slick. It wasn't okay. And it was just distasteful. Sorry. And I'm a big Oprah fan.
But you see how Oprah went in there and cleaned it up, though, right? She went in there and got an interview with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry in order to clean up the reputation, and that's something that we need to also think about and what have you. If it's something that we have done wrong, don't go and try to take I
think Oprah should have just said sorry, because I think for me with Oprah, and I think it would have been fine, because I feel like it was quite clear that Oprah, you was actually just defending your friend, and that's what you should have done. I don't feel, because she didn't say whether she agreed or not. If you really look at what, I don't know if that makes any, it was more she came to she thought she was being the white flag and she was going to clean up for her friend. And I think a simple apology and acknowledging that, what, that was actually wrong with me and she was wrong would have been fine. Like you said, rather than the whole spin doctor and PR. But again, people have advisors. they have teams, but sometimes when you mess up, we are not perfect. No one is God on this earth. And when you make a mistake, it's okay. And I feel like the world, and especially since social media has come into play, Diane, people, societies, communities, they're just unforgiving. There's no room for mistakes anymore, if that makes any sense. And I feel like that's a lead from how we've been crushed as a people in a world and society that it's been a think tank for 400 years of how to keep us down, that now everybody seems to be, what's the word, using that same principle when it doesn't actually apply in every situation, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's right out of my mouth before I was about to say it. It went right in and said apology. That's all she had to do. You don't have to go in there and you don't have to put up these billboards about Breonna Taylor. You didn't have to go in there and try to get the interview with Meghan Markle and what have you, and things like that. That's the reason why she actually done it. She went in and got the interview with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry in order to build back up her credibility with the public sector because of how people viewed her, of how she came out swinging or trying to support. And she didn't say a whole lot.
I think it was more our community. I think the mainstream community didn't actually care, Diane, if you want me to be honest with you. I think it was more our community that had a bigger problem with it because it was distasteful. Wow. It was. And she should, her girl, an apology needed to have been, well then I think there was an apology, but it wasn't big enough. It wasn't it wasn't on the same scale as what was said.
No, I mean the lady was already going through something. She lost her husband and then she lost her daughter.
She was getting a divorce, there was marital problems, infidelity, and then she lost what still was her husband that she had children for and shared a life with. I couldn't even imagine it. All in one afternoon, your daughter and your husband gone.
Mom came, and we're still talking about diversities and disparities, but her mom even came and even put a heavier weight on top of her about, he said he was going to promise me things. Sometimes we don't take the opportunity to allow an individual to heal. And even when we're asking questions, that's the reason why when, I said, well, this conversation here is a little bit sensitive or what have you and things like that, and viewer discretion is advised, and so and I'm going to make sure that when I post this I'm going to put the same thing on there, viewer discretion is advised today, because sometimes we we look in one window, we say, oh well, the women of color is going through something on this area, but sometimes what do we say when we are being affected by our own ethnicity, when we have to take it? That's the reason why these rappers and all of them, 50 Cent and whoever else and things like that, they came out on the defense of Kobe Bryant because of the actions of Gayle King and of Oprah. And I'm pretty sure, and I think it was something that, me and my sister was laughing about it. And it's not funny because any of us can ridicule, but, like you said, karma. Things what we do that'll come back on us. And I think she was having a big, huge public empowerment session. As soon as she came out on the stage, she fell and hit the floor. Oprah did. And so we have to kind of, oh yes, ma'am. I said, what happened? And they had it on the news. You know how the news, the media is. They're not hiding anything back today versus what they used to do a long time ago. You do anything.
There's cameras watching you everywhere.
They reported it that she had hit the floor, and so when the media came to her, asked her was she okay, she was kind of stern with them. Oprah was, and what have you. And so sometimes we have to rethink some things. I think she has some good aspects, but I think that's what the African American community was saying.
But I think you're right. You have to think, and I think there needs to be a certain amount of privacy in our community. Beyonce might not be best loved by many people, but she's got many fans. But if there is anyone that is incredibly private, that does stuff that, helps the community and does it when she does it, she doesn't feel the need to have to answer or say anything. She just does. It's a very good example. I don't know, Diane, I was having this conversation with my husband. What is the craving for fame so much? I don't know if that makes any sense to you. And for you to have a voice that's heard, it's like you have to, you know, be famous. And the minute you go into that, there's a protocol that you have to wait. And I find Beyonce's story, believe it or not, it's almost like she waited. She followed them and they thought that, you know, she was the corporate good girl, America's best smart. And then she switched on their asses, now releasing things about our history and doing things because she's now got the platform. They can't take her down. Her platform's so big and solid, you know, it's very strategic. But I think you're right. I think what the biggest thing you said is that's resonated with me is think before you speak, and understand that when you are on a platform and all eyes are on you, you know, everything that you're saying and what you do within your community is going to be picked apart. So you best think a little bit more than the average person about what it is that you're going to put out and what it is that you're going to say. But I just feel like there needs to be more support in our community. Right back to how we started this conversation, we need to learn how to self-promote more and rise each other up more. And that's why a simple apology probably would have got back the support of the community to kind of defend you. Because some of the comments that came out for me, like 50 Cent, again, this is a show where we like to speak our minds. You stab anyone in the back for any financial gain, so you're not even in a position to be commenting.
Okay.
You would give someone a contract that was the worst contract ever if it was going to make you £1 million, irrespective of race, color, or gender. So there are some celebrities that, you know, it's so frustrating. It would just be nice to see some, you know, voice pieces coming through in our society that's going to make change. That is not because that they want to gain their celebrity status. Though it's more about, you know, we need a new Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or poor Jesse Jackson's been running for decades. He's on his yeah. We do. We need more people to stand up and say this isn't right. And I think protesting is definitely one of the ways to go. I hope to see the rise of that. But like you said, there are many people helping. There are many things going on out there. So change is happening, maybe just not at the pace we would like.
I think we're just behind on the law, and we're behind on a lot of things in regards to civil rights, and we're behind on a lot of things when it comes to history, you know, even as well. And it's a lot. So now you're getting me to talk and what have you, and I'm just thinking about some more shows that we can be able to talk about. And I know a couple of them. Couple of things that I saw yesterday, and we can perhaps maybe schedule something for that. And that's they're moving all of the history content and the channels from you know, these satellite providers and what have you. And that's what we need. We need the history. Our children need the history. Yeah. People need the history, and so we're going to kind of piggyback on that and stuff. Perhaps.
Oh, I'd love to talk about that. There's so many different things. It's not even just our history of knowing where we came from, even just down to all the health problems that we got because we don't eat the right food. You know, or the medical research that's done about our genes because we're so different. There's just so many things about our history that's just missing. My children, some of the things that I tell them, you'd be on the floor. Like my daughter Nay, I told her, your hair grows up. It doesn't grow down like all the other girls in your school. It grows up just like the trolls, Poppy. And I said, what's Poppy got? She's a great leader and she has superpowers. I said, so you're always going to be smarter and stronger because your hair grows up in the air towards God, because it means that God can bless you. She's 4, but she's now taking that concept on that she is a superpower because her hair grows up to God. And there's just so many ways that you can introduce things to children, but history is a big one for me. We have to understand where we came from. We have to understand why, as a group and a community, are we put down so much than any other race? Like, what is the reason for that? And for me, Di, and I've said it to you before, it's because if we ever rose together and we were all on the same page, we would be one of the most powerful nations. That's why so much thought and effort. And if you really understand history and how we evolved in this world and how we came about beyond the 4,000 years that man today wants to talk about, there was a history before what you're reading about the world was created, where we were leaders. And these are not things that I'm talking about or romanticizing about. These are facts. There's African scholars. So even when we talk about museums and what they're going to do and they move, oh, please don't get me started. It frustrates me. You don't own this stuff in the first place. And then the spins that you put on it are just not true. They're very misleading and taken out of context. And it's really important, especially for our Black men, that would help to some of the extortion situations, not supporting, if they just understood the power that was in and actually where you come from historically, and all the subliminal messages are out there. If you typed into Google, I'm sorry to get into it really briefly, the word Jesus, I say no more, because if you click on the tab images,
Mm-hmm.
who and where did that image come from?
Wow, absolutely.
And you know, and even now you've got things like Israelites camp that talks, you know, the Bible's based on history, but again, there's a divide in that camp. They're teaching different things. They're seen as violent. You know, what they've done is anything to do with history, they've pushed it into religion. Even when you look at Christianity, really quickly, it was so funny. My mum was like, oh yeah, but they're Jehovah's Witness because they go church on a Saturday. I was like, Mum, that's the Seventh-day Adventist. And she's like, oh, she's like, no, it's not. I was like, Mum, it is. I said, Jehovah's Witnesses go to church on Sunday. And I said, you know what makes me laugh, Mum? Because my mum's a Christian. Yeah, I don't have a religious status. I believe in God, but I don't say I follow religion. I said, Mum, the irony of it is that you guys call yourself Christians, but you've got Methodist, you've got Pentecostal, you've got Church of England, you've got Catholic. You've got all these subdivisions of one religion, and even the Israelite, where you can learn a lot of information about your history, about the same things happening now, all these different subdivisions and different versions of it. So you don't really understand, you know, what the truth is. But funny enough, a lot of our history is in the Bible. It's the most bizarre thing ever. As I've read and I've researched and I've scholared, even race did not exist, Diane, once upon a time ago. Just let you know, we all came from tribes. There was no such thing as a lighter person, a darker person, an Indian person. We came from tribes. It wasn't based on color. That was something that got introduced to divide us. So yeah, topic, as you can see, that I'm very, yeah.
It's fine. So just talk to the audience. You can share with the audience how they can be able to get in contact with you, where they can be able to follow you, any publications or blog posts, links that you want to share with the audience. You can do that at the time.
Yeah, to make it quick and simple, simply look up Women in Digital Business on Instagram, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and also look me up, Natalia Nicholson. Either which one that you put in on all social media challenges, I will come up, and make sure you follow me. I've got a Facebook group, Women in Digital Business, where we give out loads of support, resources, workshop. And in the first instance, they are absolutely free, and they're not just free where, you know, we offer you something and it's like, oh, is that it? We really do give away value, because for us, it's about empowering other women and educating them, and me being able to pass on everything that I've failed at. So, you know, women don't have to go through that same journey. So, yeah, just check out Women in Digital Business on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. Natalia, it's always a pleasure as our guest here on Women Who Rock Investigates. You bring out so many elements of the topics that we try to share to Americans and others that are around the globe. And so, of course, we're going to have you back here on the show real soon, because we have to be able to continue these conversations in order for the public sector to be able to understand them just a little bit more. Sometimes people can say things over the news, they can say it over the media, sometimes people may have interviews or what have you, programs, but it's nothing like when you can be able to talk, sit down and listen to someone else in a conversation one-on-one, where you can be able to learn a little bit more depth and a little bit more richer resource of the topics that is up for discussion. So until next time, you all, you be encouraged, stay safe, wear your mask, and thank you again, Natalia, for being our guest.
Oh, thank you, Diane. Always a pleasure being on your show, always. Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.